Right now, the New York Rangers are on the outside looking in of a playoff spot. They're kind of in that race for a wild card spot right now with, you could say, kind of 5, 6, or 7 other teams in the Eastern Conference right now. And with that happening, the Rangers definitely could look to strengthen their roster by adding in a player before this March 7th NHL trade deadline. And one player that I think would be a perfect fit for this team, could also help this team right now, but also potentially in the future if they did look to re-sign this player who is having a bit of a down season, is still only about 27 years old, can be that possibly kind of perfect third line center for this team, help knock a guy like Johnny Brodzinski down to that fourth line or in more of a depth role, and that is Trent Frederic of the Boston Bruins. Now, like I said, this player is having a bit of a down season compared to what he's kind of done the last couple seasons here with the Bruins, but he is still, like I said, only 27, so he's not too old. He's definitely a player who kind of fits somewhat of this kind of timeline that the Rangers are on right now with most of this kind of core, so I think that age range is fine for sure, and the one kind of downside, yes, is the fact that he is a unrestricted free agent, but I think with his kind of playing style, with his kind of capability and kind of talent that he has shown at moments at the NHL level in the past, and with kind of what he can bring with his kind of feistiness and physicality and kind of tenacity and energy on the ice, that is something the Rangers definitely need more of. So bringing in a guy like that, and I think he is someone who the Rangers could possibly also look to maybe re-sign on a kind of shorter term deal, like a 1, maybe 2, 3-year deal this upcoming offseason. If they did trade for a guy like that, look to bring him back and just kind of on a short-term deal, because he is someone who, like I said, before this season, had a couple really solid seasons, but obviously this one has kind of taken that big step back. So maybe he's a player who's looking to kind of, sign that 1, 2-year deal, kind of short-term deal to kind of prove it and have another couple good seasons here to really kind of prove himself to end up signing that pretty decent-sized contract in another season or two. And now let's take a look here at what David Pagnotta had to say about this kind of Trent Frederic and kind of Boston Bruins trade situation. And he ends up saying, with the Bruins being in a tough spot, clubs are keeping an eye on some of their pending unrestricted free agents. According to NHL insider David Pagnotta, teams have expressed interest in Bruins forwards Trent Frederic and Justin Brazeau. And I think that makes sense there. That obviously, a team like the Bruins who maybe aren't in the best spot right now, aren't looking to really kind of win this cup, this season. Maybe they do look to kind of unload some of their players that are unrestricted free agents, like a Trent Frederic. And, yes, I think the Rangers are in a spot where, it probably isn't the right decision to go out there and spend big on a bunch of rentals and go out there and go after guys like I've talked about in the past, like an Andrew Kopp or Tarasenko or Kane, where giving up these high-tier assets for rentals. But I think with a guy like Trent Frederic, he's not going to cost a lot because he already, before this season was not some star level kind of guy truly, but with how much of a down season he's kind of had so far, it's not a humongous drop off, but it definitely is a decent sized drop off for sure. I think he's definitely not going to go for a ton. He is a pretty much, for the most part over his career, kind of proven to be kind of that third line caliber center, which is, valuable. And he definitely has proven to be a pretty good one at that, I think, at moments in, the past, especially last season there. And with his kind of overall kind of playing style as well, he fits that third line role perfectly. So that's kind of why I think this is someone who, with him only being 27 years old, he turned 27 on February 11th. Him being a 6'3" center, he has that size, his playing style, that tenacity, the energy, the toughness, the physicality, just the pain in the butt to play against. He'll piss you off, get under your skin. He's one of those kind of players, and adding in that kind of a guy, I think, is really important for this team. We added in Sam Carrick. That was great in all this past offseason. I think he is a awesome fourth line center. He fits that role quite well, but adding in another guy like that who can bring a little more offensively, a little more in his all-around game like a Trent Frederic can, and play that third-line center spot possibly. You pick him up on kind of the low right now, for not a ton. Maybe it's like a lower draft pick and a lower prospect, whatever it ends up being. Maybe we're swapping some rentals here and we're sending a pick that way as well. I don't exactly know, but there are options, obviously, to make some of this happen. And I just think it makes sense there for the Rangers to go after someone like this who, yes, is a rental, but is someone who I think it makes a lot of sense to trade for and then look to really kind of, re-sign and possibly extend even if you wanted to, at some point. I think this is someone who fits what this team kind of needs long-term, but also right now as well. So this is a player who, yes, maybe is a rental, but I think can be someone who you bring in as a rental, but with the intention of kind of trying to keep him around long-term. So if the Rangers didn't really want to keep him around after the season and just really didn't kind of like his playing style at all, I don't see him being a part of this team past this season right now, then obviously it probably makes sense to kind of avoid trading for Trent. But if you do see this guy as possibly being a kind of long-term piece and you're willing to go out there and spend that kind of, probably mid to later round pick and whatever kind of prospect it is, if it has to be one, maybe it's just kind of a okay mid-round pick. I don't exactly know what his value is going to be because he is having a down season now. He is more of just kind of a third-line guy, but it's really not going to be a lot. I mean, at most, I could see like a fourth-round pick and a okay prospect. I mean, I can't see a whole lot more than that realistically. So, in my opinion, as talented as he is, yes, he's going to be maybe a little bit of kind of value there. Maybe his market kind of drives up there if he can kind of heat up over the next few games here and maybe really kind of show a little more possibly. I don't exactly know, but I just really don't think he's going to cost a ton. So I think the Rangers can go out there and get this guy for cheap. It could really look like a good deal. And he's also someone who, maybe you can kind of snag on a pretty cheap contract there as well for, like a 3-year deal at like, $3 million. I mean, that would not be bad at all to take that kind of a risk on a guy, Trent Frederic, if he wanted to sign something like that or a 2-year deal at like 2.5, 2.75. I mean, if you get him something around even close to there, that could look like a really, really good kind of contract for a third line center. So we'll have to wait and see, but I really do think he could be a nice guy to kind of bring in as a rental, but also with the intention of keeping around long-term, which is exactly what this team needs to do because, going after rentals is great and all, but at the end of the day, if you're not kind of seeing these players kind of being potential kind of long-term pieces as well to kind of, re-sign or extend, to me, going after rentals doesn't make a lot of sense with where this team is at right now because this team is not in a, must kind of win now scenario right now where they have to go all in this season. They're not in that spot at all. They're in a spot where they can take things a little slower and, maybe make a little buying move here or there for a rental. That's fine, but not giving up that high tier asset or something like that and going after a bunch of them. Just go after 1 or 2 little rentals if you have to and you really feel like that can make a big kind of difference in making the playoffs and kind of making that push for, a first round win or whatever it is. But I really do think a guy like Trent Frederic could fit this team quite well. But taking a look here at another quote here from David Pagnotta kind of talking about this situation here with Trent Frederic and the Boston Bruins as he ends up saying, quote, Trent Frederic has generated a ton of interest for a good portion of the season, Pagnotta said, in Brazil recently as well. They had contract talks with, I believe, both in December. It's been relatively mild since, so they're going to kind of see where they are at before they make a decision on selling either of those 2 players. And that makes sense. I mean, the Rangers are kind of in that spot as well where I think they do need to kind of maybe take it a little slower on this deadline because they do have 7 games in between the deadline and when they get back from this kind of, 4 days face-off break. So those 7 games are going to have a pretty major impact on possibly what this team's kind of path is going to be because if you go 1-6 in those games, you really should think about being big sellers and kind of, selling off everything you can of guys like, Jimmy Vesey, Riley Smith, Ryan Lindgren, Zach Jones. You kind of want to move out all those guys if you possibly can and get whatever back you can. But if you go 6-1, that's possibly a whole other story where maybe you're not looking to really move, those guys. Maybe you're just looking to move off of a guy like maybe a Lindgren and a Zach Jones, and you're looking to go out there and add a piece or 2 as well, right? So there are definitely scenarios where, these wins that can happen or losses that can happen after this kind of break here could have a major impact to kind of really change the path of what this team decides to do. But at the end of the day, I think Trent Frederic is a guy who can help this team now and also in the future. So to me, it does make a lot of sense for this team to be interested in someone like this who I really do like his play style and I think fits this team just perfectly because we need more toughness, grit, tenacity, energy out there on the ice, and that's exactly kind of what this guy can bring. So having a guy like Rempe, Sam Carrick, Trent Frederic, Will Cooley, you're really starting to add some toughness and grit into that lineup, which is exactly what this team needs more of. And now taking a look at what Trent has done so far this season offensively, he's got 15 points in 55 games played, 8 goals, 7 assists. Not bad at all. 7 of his 8 goals and 5 of his 7 assists are at even strength. So, definitely producing mostly at 5-on-5, which is exactly what you want to see. The one kind of downside is he definitely is not a great faceoff taker. 43.3%, career-wise 44.3%, not great at all. But is obviously hitting a ton and plays a very physical game. Has 147 hits this season in only 55 games played. Last season, 204 hits and 82 games played, where he had 40 points, though, 22 assists, 18 goals, and he did have 16 of his 18 goals at even strength and all 22 of his assists at even strength as well. So that definitely says something about his game. He can produce at 5-on-5. So Overall, I know a lot of Rangers fans definitely are interested in this player. Many of you have talked about it in the comments and just kind of made your opinions known about him, and that's fair. I mean, this is a player who I also think could be a good fit on this team. He's not going to cost a lot. At most, is it a third round pick and no prospect? Like, I don't see it being anything more than that. Even a third round pick is probably pushing it a bit for kind of what he's done so far this season, in my opinion. So I think he's going to be cheap, and if you do have a good idea that you can kind of pretty much bring him back, under some kind of a contract for next season and beyond, that would not be a bad idea at all. I don't want to lock him up long term on like an 8-year deal because that could be a little risky unless the cap was super, super low. But just in general, I do think this is a player who should be targeted by the Rangers and would make a lot of sense for this team for not only this season to help to make playoffs and kind of make that push and really kind of strengthen this roster, but also going along into the future as well, as this team could definitely use some more center depth down the middle. Anyways, thank you all so much for watching this video. If you have enjoyed, definitely hit that like and subscribe button for daily New York Rangers content. It really does help out a ton. It really means a lot. So if you don't mind, hit that like and subscribe button if you enjoyed this video and you are a New York Rangers fan, as I do post every single day. And also, definitely don't forget to comment down below your thoughts on Trent Frederic, and do you want to see the Rangers trade for him, as I think he could be a pretty good target. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next one. Let's go Rangers.